Mary Holm is here. Who else sung that song, Mary?
I don't know. I know the song, but
Yeah.
I don't know who sang it. No.
Willie Nelson,
Of course.
Elvis
Yes.
Presley.
Elvis sang it.
Yeah.
Now that surprises me. Willie did quite a sort of poignant version
Quite
of
a
it.
countryish version,
Yes.
yeah. Yes, he recorded that. Elvis recorded a few weeks after the separation with his wife Priscilla.
Oh.
And one of his big songs of the 70s.
Oh, gosh.
Well, listen, you're our personal finance expert, not our music trivia expert, so I just asked you that for fun. And you're sort of looking back on 2023 and looking at the big story of the year.
Yes, and I mean, the economists would say it's not rising interest rates, it's inflation, which, of course, because inflation is a problem, the Reserve Bank raised the official cash rate and that caused the rise in interest rates. So they're all connected. And, arguably you could say, well, inflation's the one that affects everybody because everybody's buying stuff. But I think interest rates, for one thing, they hit some people very hard, and they also are really good for other people. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to talk about is the interplay between how rising interest rates are a mixed blessing around the place.
Yeah.
Another important point to start with is that these are certainly not the biggest rises in a year. In fact, in 2022, interest rates rose more than they did in 2023. But I was thinking it's kind of like you were in a flood, let's say, and the water's up to about your waist or so, and you're not too worried, but then as it starts getting towards your head, and so it's a little bit like that. Last year the rates were high, and people were coping, and this year they've got higher, and I think it's made it quite a lot harder.
But also, just because the rates went up last year didn't mean that you were paying those extra rates. So more people this year would have rolled over and got their new rate for the first time.
That's a really good point. And when you say rolled over, it's quite an apt, because people kind of rolled over and had to accept it, eh?
Yeah.
It's kind of an apt expression. But, it's... And so I wanted to have a quick look at how it affected mortgage rates and how it affected term deposit rates.
Right.
And then house prices and bank profits, because they're all quite different.
Well, let's hope the
results
banks have
from-
done all right out of this.
Yeah, well, no.
Won't someone think of the banks?
Yes, poor banks. We got to worry about the banks. Yes, yeah. No. So mortgage rates are the ones that get more attention in the media than term deposit rates. And I think that's partly because when mortgage rates get high, people struggle, whereas when term deposit rates get low, people aren't as inclined to be really struggling. But I also always wonder if there's a bit of a media bias, that I think people who are running the media are likely to be people with mortgages.
Oh, yeah.
And so I wonder if that adds to the focus on mortgages.
And real estate is like catnip for media as well,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. That's right.
Any excuse to talk about.
Anything to do with houses and property. Yeah, you're quite right. It is. It's
Term deposits deeply unsexy, Mary.
Yes. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Jessie. So when I looked at the numbers, the term deposit, mortgage rates went from an average of about 3.5 to 7.7, from 3.5 in 2021 to 7.7, which is a big increase. Those are sort of just looking at average rates being charged around the place. So it jumped 4.2 percentage points from 3.5 to 7.7, and it's meant that people are really struggling. And I mean, the basic message, we've talked about this before, but talk to your lender or talk to your mortgage broker if you're really struggling, because there are various things you can do, like extending the term of the mortgage or making it interest only, or even taking a mortgage payment holiday, which is not when you simply stop making payments, because that's when you get into trouble. But if you talk to a lender and explain your situation, and that in the short term you're really struggling, perhaps you've lost your job or something, sometimes they will give you actually a break from most or all of the payments for a while.
How hard is it to find someone at the bank to talk to these days?
I don't know
No.
because I haven't been in that situation,
Yeah.
but I would think
I hear that it's harder, and because you used to just be able to go up to the corner and
Yes.
wander in and have a yarn to
And have a
somebody,
chat.
or maybe book a meeting with the mortgage manager or whatever. I don't think it's quite that
Yes.
simple anymore.
No, I'm sure it's not. But if you get in touch with your lender and say, look, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to make my payments this month, I think you'll get somebody to talk to you. I hope so. Let's hear from any listeners if people have actually had trouble with that.
Yes, 2101 is the text number. I'd love to hear your experiences there.
Basically the message is don't wait until you're behind with payments. Get in and talk to them first. And then on the other hand, we've got term deposit rates, which have gone way up as well. And I was thinking there are two very distinct groups that are affected by that. One is people who don't yet own a home and are perhaps saving for a home, and some of their savings might be in term deposits, especially if they're getting close to the time of buying the property. They might be wanting to just plant some in term deposits for a year or two. And on the other hand, you've got people who've already got the house and the mortgage paid off and they've got term deposits in retirement and they're quite well off. And when you look at the average, so in mortgages from 2021, it went from 3.5 to 7.7. In term deposits, it went from about 0.9 to 5.8. I don't expect people to remember all of those numbers, but the jump is actually bigger. It went 4.9, nearly 5 percentage points for term deposits, whereas mortgages went a bit over 4 percentage points. So term deposit people have actually done better than mortgage than mortgage people have done badly, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And the main message about term deposits is to shop around and don't be loyal to your bank, because there's a lot of, some of the smaller banks are offering higher rates, and as long as they're a bank, I would say you're probably all right. I wouldn't guarantee it, but I wouldn't be going to non-banks necessarily. I mean, some of them are fine, of course, but when we look at what happened
the
to
finance companies and the
yes,
GFC,
but
we got it bad here in New Zealand, didn't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
we did, with the finance companies especially all falling over. Yes, it was interest.co.nz is the place to get the interest rates, to shop around and move your money to one that will pay you a decent sort of a rate. And then briefly, how interest rates have affected the fall in house prices. Nobody ever quite knows exactly why house prices fall or start rising faster or whatever, but it's all undoubtedly the increase in mortgage interest rates has made it harder for people to buy first homes in particular, and so that's tended to keep house prices down, I suppose. And they have fallen. I was sort of just looking, okay, how much in total have they fallen? About 13% for the country in the last couple of years, from an average of just over 1 million to just over 900,000 is what's happened. Worse, bigger falls in Auckland and bigger still in Wellington. Wellington is the biggest city to have the biggest falls, 22%, which is a big fall in Wellington, which is quite surprising, really.
You might be anticipating having a bit less money sloshing around in the next couple of years.
Yes, I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's something like that.
Mary says, Louise on text, just because we're retired and have a bit of money in term deposit, we are not well off. That's a big assumption, reckons Louise.
Fair enough, Louise. Yeah, look, indeed. You're quite right.
You said if they'd paid off their mortgage and had some money in a term deposit.
Yes, if you've got a mortgage-free home and got money in a term deposit, you're certainly more comfortable than many people, let's just say that. But if you haven't got a lot in a term deposit and you're just using that to supplement your New Zealand super, she's quite right. I probably spoke too sweepingly. Yeah, sorry. So getting back to house prices, they seem to be turning now, and they're still nearly 25% more than they were before COVID. So we sort of forget how extraordinary. At the beginning of COVID, people thought house prices were going to fall, and in fact, they rose dramatically. I think they might have sort of possibly even fallen briefly, but then they rose incredibly much. And even though they've now dropped 13%, we're still nearly 25% more than we were before COVID, which is so house prices are still ridiculous. Yeah. It looks as though they're turning now, though. The latest data suggests the fall has stopped pretty much around the country. But and then looking at all of this, okay, so we've got interest rates rising, and how has it affected bank profits? I don't know whether you saw my column last weekend, but somebody asked about that. They said, the banks are creaming it because the term deposit rates have gone. Oh, sorry, because mortgage rates have gone up. And so they're making a whole lot more money. But that person wasn't looking at the fact that term deposit rates have gone up too, and so the banks are paying more and getting more.
Yeah.
And
the margin is, I guess, the important thing.
yes,
isn't it?
the margin between the two. And that is actually, it barely changes. I had this interesting graph that the Reserve Bank sent to me that you can see on my website, by the way, on my column section on my website if you want to, of the official cash rate, which has gone up and down and all over the place in the last 10 years or so, and bank profits have barely changed. They've just chugged along at about the same level. So
maybe they're higher and always have been higher here than in other countries, though. That might
yes,
be fair.
look, that might be true. I'm actually not all that up with that. They are high. I'm not, and a lot of money going over to Australia. I'm not disputing that, and higher than you and I think they should be, but they don't go up when mortgage rates go up, which is quite interesting. So where are we now? Well, we get winners and losers. When interest rates go up, the borrowers, the mortgage people lose, and the term deposit people gain. And then when interest rates go down, it's the opposite. And so it's interesting to, if people take a slightly longer term perspective, it kind of evens out in the end. It's, so, and rates, no one really is saying that interest rates are going to, or the official cash rate, the government, the Reserve Bank's rate, is going to go up higher, or maybe a squidgen higher, but the economists are sort of forecasting for interest rates to start falling sometime next year or the year after. It's always very vague, and there's things that happen that haven't been predicted and all of that. But can I just tell you one other quick thing? An update on, a couple of times ago we looked at KiwiSaver services, remember? And last time we had an update from Simplicity on it, and now ANZ has written to me and said, because at the time I was reporting what they had reported, is that if you're in more than one KiwiSaver fund, like people in retirement or heading for retirement, you can't choose which fund to withdraw from. Your withdrawals come evenly across the funds you're in. And ANZ's now changed that. They wrote to me and said, we've now changed that. So I thought, well, good on them. And I don't know. I think they had probably already got it going before we were talking. I don't.
Mary Holm, agent of change.
I wish, but anyway, I mean, because they're a big KiwiSaver provider, so it's really good to see that they're sharpening their tools on services. Yeah.
Okay, bit of feedback on going to the bank. I banked some cash at one of the big banks last Saturday. One of the $2 coins was not accepted by the machine as it was quite damaged, although still recognisable. I approached one of the two tellers to get it swapped, but he said he wasn't authorised to do that and to come back during the week.
At that point, I think you say $2 is $2 and throw it in the river.
Mary, implicit in your comments about banks is the option of changing your bank. The hassle of doing so is a major disincentive involving multiple visits and frustration.
Yes.
All the best for the new year from Andrew.
I've been through that myself, but it's got better. I think that the Reserve Bank and the FMA possibly have made the banks make it somewhat easier than it used to be. It's not as bad. Yeah.
Eleanor says, sad fact, yes, interest rates have jumped up more than mortgage rates, but income from term deposits is then knocked back by taxes by up to around 30%, so that
Yes.
immediately chops back the effective income.
Really good point. Really good point, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Yes, you too,
Thank
Jesse.
you for your excellent sessions this year. See you in
Thank
2024.
you.
That's
You
Mary.
have a lovely break.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's Mary
Bye-bye.
Holm, who's you can catch up with her previous episodes on our website on the podcasts page.